You're listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast, brought to you by DraftKings, America's #1 sportsbook app. Speaking of DraftKings, John Schuster, the over-under on this game was 27.5, or excuse me, the spread was 27.5. Guess how much Arizona won by?
Arizona won by, was it 28?
27.
Oh.
Good. There's a lot of upset people there, but you know what? If you're on the DraftKings sportsbook app, you can use code word PHNX and you can get right back in there.
So the Cats are 3-0 right now. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
Which means that they're 1-2 now against the spread.
Yeah. Tommy Lloyd not getting it done.
He's just not getting it done. Speaking of getting it done?
Speaking of getting it done, Mr. William Brad Alice. Hello, William.
As Shu can attest to, I'm rarely prompt.
Oh, no. You got to remember, I was board hopping all those years. I had a front row seat to the promptness.
But you said 9 o'clock, and I'm in at 8:59. And
yeah, that is true. That is true. And
your guys are already going strong.
You know what? I mean, Brad, you're right. Brad, you're spot on. And the thing about your relative lack of promptness, since you're the one who brought this up, in fairness, I didn't bring this up. It wasn't me. It was you. You opened the door on this. What is remarkably amazing is that you're prompt at not being prompt. You're almost always about 90 seconds late. Yeah. It's absolutely phenomenal. So you are the most punctual, unpunctual person that I know.
I think that's an accurate description. It says someone appearances in various newsrooms would attest.
By the way, this fancy ring light I got is very annoying because it puts a ring on my glasses. I don't know if you noticed or not.
Yeah, I did notice. You were looking like a serious influencer there.
Well, that's why I don't wear the newly acquired glasses on the air.
I might move this a little bit, but let's talk about it. Arizona wins by 27 points. One thing, and we're going to get to some points here again because Nick Howard raises a good point. Our guy, Nick Howard, 56 points by Utah Tech in the second half is ridiculous. Totally agree. But I will say this, and this is something that we've talked about all season. We talked about it last year, and I'm going to turn that ring light off in a second, and Jacob Franklin's probably going to yell at me. I do apologize, Jacob. But the one thing that is annoying, that is very similar to Lute Olson's teams, is if a team comes in here overmatched, they're most likely going to get smacked. Now, again, against better teams, the physicality could be a problem. I totally get that. But teams that should lose by 30 points end up losing by 30 points plus. And so he doesn't mess around with teams that he shouldn't beat, John, or that he should beat, John Schuster.
Yeah, no, the style that they utilize falls under that category. It's something where Arizona can score quickly and in bunches. And when that happens, if you're playing inferior competition, as Arizona certainly in the early stages of this has, then they can take care of business and have generally done a very good job in that regard. It's not one of those things where Arizona is working hard to try to run plays and utilize 20 or 25 seconds of a shot clock. Arizona's approach is, if you've got a fast break, take it. If you're done in the shot clock in 5 seconds, great. Doing something like that's going to give you more possessions. When you have more possessions and you're playing inferior basketball teams, the likelihood is that you're going to get some lopsided elements. One of the things that stood out to me, though, Mike and Brad, in this game, is that I was reminded that there are a lot of college basketball teams and a lot of college basketball teams that just aren't very good.
You're not kidding, man.
So it will be I don't want to say no disrespect to Utah Tech because it sounds like I'm disrespecting them. I know they're early in the process and they're giving it their best right now. And that's all well and good and great. But man, when you've got 3,438 Division I 1-2-3, whatever the hell it is, college basketball teams. You're playing some of these teams, and you do get some lopsided finals. And even though Arizona gave up 56 points, and that completely ruined Nick Howard's weekend, hopefully we'll get a better gauge of what we're looking at as Arizona amps up talent in the next week.
William?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's not concerning yet. I would bet if we went and looked at a bunch of early season Lute Olson era games, we'd see something very similar. When Arizona, I mean, holding a team to 21 points in the first half is ridiculous as well. So, yeah, my guess is, kind of all evens out, water finds its level. And in this case, it's about a 30-point loss for I guess they were Dixie State, which before that
I had never heard of Utah Tech until
I hadn't either until this week when they appeared on multiple not only men's and women's college basketball, but I saw a Utah Tech football reference or something. But it turns out they used to be Dixie State, which Shu and I will remember was Dixie Community College because Arizona recruited there as well as Snow, which also became BYU Augsburg or one of the, they're one of the BYU
right.
directional schools. So, whereas, JC programs in the state of Arizona just get rid of football. If you're a Utah JC, apparently you become a D1 or D2 program. They're just not a good basketball team and don't have the athletes to keep up with Arizona. And you get frustrated because you committed 16 turnovers and you gave up 51 points in the second half. But at one point, they were holding them to 18% shooting. And again, 21 points in the first half. And unless you're just inept on offense yourself, which this team is not, you give up 21 points in a half, you're going to win 99% of those ball games.
All right. One thing I will say, though, is Kerr Kriisa going into this season, a lot of people had questions about him and, what his shooting was going to be like. Now, again, granted, these aren't good teams that he's playing against. But the one thing that I am very excited about with Kerr Kriisa is he has made his shots. He's shooting about 70% from three with 6 of 7 from downtown again tonight. He looks comfortable out there. And honestly, when he makes threes, it's a different team. You saw that last year, and I think you'll see it this year, Shu.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I think is a number that we'll be paying attention to throughout the course of the year. 6 of 7 from three is great. Kriisa is a problem if he's 3 for 15, as
Correct.
opposed to if he's 2 for 7. And the reason for the difference is that at 7 shot attempts, you're not trying to force it. At 15 shot attempts, maybe you're hurting Arizona with overall possessions. Even though the percentages are generally the same, there are opportunities elsewhere for Arizona to score and get good production out of offensive possessions. So far, Kriisa has done a pretty darn good job of that. And then going, if he can be a good three-point shooting threat and a legitimate scoring option for Arizona against better basketball teams, then the Cats are going to be better across the board.
Brad, does this point worry you right here, Travis Strauss? Because a couple people smarter than us are asking this question. Travis Strauss says, lost the second half for a second game in a row, too. Does that bother you, William?
No.
Why not?
Dylan Anderson was on the floor with 8 minutes to play.
Be nice. Be nice.
No, but, I mean,
right.
This was not Lute Olson and Sean Miller waiting to a minute and a half to, and I'm not going to say clear the bench because that's not fair to Anderson or Borovichinen, but that's right now 9 and 10. And when the season starts, 10 and 11 in your rotation. So if those guys are getting, considerable minutes before the second to last TV timeout, I don't want to say you've thrown in the towel or whatever the reverse is when you're winning, but it's basically like running drop halfback dives up 45 in a football game. So do I like it? No, of course I don't like it. I don't like 16 turnovers either. But it's easy to lose focus when you're up 30. It's easy to give up some garbage buckets when, you're 9, 10, 11, 12, 13th player, where guys who have, higher GPAs than minutes per game come out on the floor. So is it something to keep an eye on? Absolutely. Is it a concern? Not yet. Now, if they do it,
well,
let's say they're up 12 on Cincinnati and Cincinnati outscores in the second half, then yeah, it might be a little concerned.
And see, that's kind of where I'm at right now. And we talked about this a little bit on the postgame show, a couple previous postgame shows, is that these are kids. If this game was 8-12 the entire game, and I know I sound like a broken record, then yes, I'd be concerned. But when you get up 30 points, when you're smashing teams like that, that to me is the better indicator. Now, again, you can't do that against good teams. But, well, I guess if you're up 30 against Arkansas and you give up a 12-point run, you'll be okay. But you guys get what I'm saying, though.
You know, I think part of the thing, though, and Brad touched on this, and I agree probably on what Brad said with about 99.85 accuracy in that last statement. But
which is better than my on-time percentage.
But one of the main points that he made is you're building up big leads with Tubelis and Kriisa and Ballo and your starters and Larson, and in the second half you're playing bench players. Well, there's a pretty good chance you're not going to win the second half, or it's going to be a lot more competitive. If Lloyd had, played the first, the starters as much in the first half as he did in the second half, then maybe Arizona wins by 60 and the numbers look significantly different. But he has been given the luxury here of being able to play bench players a little bit more and giving them on-court time. And with on-court time, with players who aren't as good, you want them to get some acclimated to some degree as to what's going on in real game situations, so that if the season progresses and you have an injury or you have somebody with foul trouble, whatever adversity might come up, you may be closer to ready to step in and be more effective than you might be if, like Brad noted with the Lute Olson and Sean Miller examples, if you've got guys who are coming in for 3 possessions with 90 seconds left.
I've got a couple questions here real quick, William, and then we'll get to your point because it's still better than mine. Nick Howard's asked me, what are you drinking? I had a Four Peaks before. Right now I'm having a Barrio, though. I will say that on Thursdays, I generally give myself 2 to 3 beers. You're watching me in my second one right now, so I'll be careful right here. Brad, what are we going to get to?
I say that, to me, my biggest concern of this game is the fact the bench didn't score till the second half, and they only scored 12 bench points.
Right.
Adama Ball, I think, had 2 or 3. Yeah. Henderson only had 1 bucket, which, again, I'm not looking at it right now because every time I click on the box score, the video plays in the background. Visar only had, I think, 2 or 3. So that, to me, is a bigger concern, the fact that either they were unable to get those guys enough quality looks, or those guys just weren't able to hit their shots tonight. Again, the good news is the starting lineup scored whatever they did, 70-something. But you'd like to see one of those guys go off and be the 6th guy in double figures, and that just didn't happen tonight. Now it's happened this season, but something to keep an eye on a little bit. I think the other interesting thing, will be how now do they integrate Corey and Ramey into this, because again, that's 3 games against inferior competition where they haven't needed them, but they also haven't been able to use them. So that's going to be a something to look at when they get to Maui, is how do they start utilizing him. Again, it sounds like he's going to start. That's what your boy Tommy said. We can't call him Tommy Gun, apparently.
Oh, did you see? I got dressed down for asking him about that.
You know what? I figured watching the actual video would be like watching the answering machine scene in Swingers, just too uncomfortable. So I didn't watch it, but I read the quotes, and I did feel bad for you. But that
I stand resolute.
Yeah. How do they use Ramey? That's what I want to know.
All right. Yeah, let's talk about that in a second here. Great game. I want to talk about this. Jim's Soccer Money. Great name right there. Want to get to that in a second. Dirty Dancer makes a great point as well. But guys, have I told you about the DraftKings Sportsbook app, code word PHNX?
Not in this postgame broadcast.
All right.
I've actually been waiting.
That's my opening right there. Okay. Here's the deal. New customers can bet $5 money line on any NBA team to win. And guess what? If they win, you get $200 free dollars. That's easy. You can also boost your winnings up to 100% with DraftKings stepped up same game parlay. It's simple. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app, code word PHNX. Again, what's the code word, guys? Everybody out there, what's the code word?
PHNX.
All right. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes For details, again, if you were going to bet on an Arizona game, you would take the over because Tommy Lloyd, formerly known as the Tommy Gun, would probably help that. Now, Chef Duarte says, tell me about OGs. Well, you know what? It's almost like you got my reads in front of me because OGs is the next one up there.
Chef, you've been looking at the show notes for details.
OGs, Chef, you were the man. All right, here's the deal. OGs just did something that is totally changing the game. They just launched their new brand of the Sleepy Edition gummy. All right, you don't want to sleep on these. See what I did there? That was good. That was good. Swedish pinball, baby. Yes, you heard that right. OGs is now flying flavoring dreams with a 2-to-1 THC CBN real ratio gummy. CBN is a compound that helps specifically with falling and staying asleep, and this Sleep Edition gummy is the new aquaberry flavor. You must be 21 and older to purchase. Enjoy responsibly. See show notes for details. Chef Duarte says, I used to work at OGs. Smart man right there. All right. Now, I scratch your back, you scratch mine. All right. Now, whatever. But, all right. Arizona's going into Maui now. I want to talk about Cedric Henderson a little bit. I like Cedric Henderson. I don't know what exactly it is, but there is something about Cedric Henderson that I like. To me, he's not going to do dumb things out there. He's physically strong. He's athletic. And I think he's going to be a valuable contributor all season, Shu.
He's going to, I think, have to be. And Arizona's
What do you think about him? Forget about that for a second. What do you think about just what you've seen?
I generally like the potential defensive stopper-ish physicality aspect, but I am so uncertain overall about what Arizona is at this stage, and my larger concern is what they are in the backcourt/wing position. Right. So one of the things that I'm definitely anticipating and looking forward to in the games that are coming up is how well Arizona matches athleticism in the backcourt and on the wing. And Henderson is clearly a guy who needs to be important in that mix. And it's probably, to me, going to be the relative theme. And I know we'll talk, about plenty of legitimate subtext throughout the course of a bunch of games that are on the schedule this year. And a lot of folks have brought it up. The turnover issue, as Brad also noted, as you noted, Mike, and of course the folks in the comments section, is something that is jumping out at some folks. The second half issue, which I think probably is a little less of an issue and way too early to tell right now whether that's a theme or not. But to me, the overarching curiosity that I have about what Arizona is that I expect them to be a real problem for people in the front court. And I'm not sure how well against elite teams they can hold up their end of the bargain in the backcourt and in the wings. And if Arizona is better in those positions than I think maybe they are, then I think the Cats can be a problem for a lot of people. And if they aren't, the Cats might have a lot more problems than we anticipate. So the week that's coming up, I think hopefully is going to give us a little bit more of an indicator about what we might be able to expect.
William, don't you feel that we're going to have a much better idea of where we are where Arizona is as a team at this point next week?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, obviously since Ramey only missed games because of suspension and not because of injury like Larson did, the guy we see in Maui is going to be the guy we're going to see most of the year. Unlike Larson, it would have taken about a month last year. I think we're going to find out potentially how good this team is, or how bad. I know some people worried about a lot of things. I think most of the things we're worried about are, at least for the basement level of this team, are fixable. Turnovers, lack of focus. I think a lot of that's going to get better against good competition. I'm not worried about the overall athleticism of this team unless they play one of these, an Oregon type with like athletes at all five positions, but there aren't a whole lot of those. I think sometimes we get into the color game, the nationality game, where we a lot of people are like, oh, I've talked to people around town. Bella Larson, oh, he's not that athletic. Well, yeah, he kind of is.
He kind of is. The Swedish pinball is athletic.
I think Tubelis is more athletic than people. Now, is he going to guard a Jordan Poole type no? But he's more athletic than I think we give him credit for. because we buy into that stereotype of the unathletic European big man, and he's really not.
I dealt with the stereotype of the unathletic white man my entire basketball playing career.
As did I, but it was an accurate statement. But I was also 5'0". So I just don't know how good they are as a team as a whole, and that's my question. I don't know how good, guys like Ball really are. How good Visser is going to be. How good, some of these role players, even Henderson, as much as I've liked what I've seen from Henderson, so I just don't know how good they are. So is this a team that only goes 5 or 6 deep, or is this legitimately a team, that can go 8, 9, 9.5 deep with Boswell, with Ramey as the starter, with, Adama Ball being a legit scorer off the bench? So those are my questions. I think, I'm not worried about this being a bad team or a mediocre team. This is a good team. Now, whether it's a very good to excellent team, that we don't know. But, I don't think this is a 500 team because they had 16 turnovers against Utah Tech and got outscored by, 5 or 6 in the second half. Now, that may mean they're a 7 or 8 seed as opposed to a 3 or 4 seed, but I don't have huge concerns.
I got to tell you something about the character real quick. Philly B, as they're putting him, as we put him out there, should also be endorsing Filiberto's, by the way, Mexican food. But one of the coolest things that I've ever seen at a presser, and you could tell media day, you can tell that it's probably because, new to the country and whatnot. Every time I got a little bit of a one-on-one interview with him, every time I would ask him a question, he would respond with, "And what about you?" And so I would ask him a question. I would say, what's the strengths to your game right now? And he would say, whatever, I got, whatever. And then he would say, "Did you play basketball?" And then I would say, "Yes." And then he would say, what were you really good at?" And I was like, it was just and I'll always remember that the rest of my life. I just felt to put that out there. Very good, very interesting conversation right there.
Did you answer him though?
I did answer him. I said, "Philly B, you are much better than I ever thought about being at basketball. Believe it or not, you're also about 1.5 feet, maybe 2 feet taller than me."
He didn't have a hard time believing that part.
He believed that part right there, but I got to give him a lot of credit on that one right there. All right, real quick, and then we're going to get to Maui and what we're looking for right there. By the way, our guy Chad McDonald's, who we've met before. You've met Chad McDonald's, John Schuster.
I have. Hello, Chad. It's good to see you. Brad, did you notice that Mike Luke just completely sidestepped the portion of the question where he didn't say what his strengths were on the
basketball? Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm not hiding that. I can really, really shoot. I was a little bit above average athlete. I will say that. But that's about it. There was nothing very notable about Mike Luke right there. Oh, Travis or Tyler, we're gonna get to this point in a second here. But first, got to tell you about 2 things. Mountain Mike's Pizza on Oracle and Wetmore. John Schuster was there for the grand unveiling. Mountain Mike's Pizza brought it to Tap and Bottle, by the way. Very big, large, crispy pepperonis. Good food. Check it out. They got it's a nice little place to go watch games. Check it out.
I got it post hockey. It was great.
Did you go there as well, Brad?
I brought it home for the family after hockey the other night. Yeah, it was great.
Were you? So you were a big fan, right?
I am. We'll go back. It's right down the street from the house.
All right. So Mountain Mike's. If it's good for John Schuster and Brad Allis, it's good for my Taco Bell taste buds as well. Check it out, Mountain Mike's Pizza and Tap and Bottle, the official watch party for all the away games. Check it out. Scott and Rebecca do a great job. We're going to be doing there a lot of men's basketball games, and we're going to be doing some women's basketball games there as well. Plus, they have 4 Peaks there as well. Check it out. Again, Tap and Bottle downtown. Chad McDonald's, I expect to see you there at some point. All right. I will not let this slander slide right here. Travis Strauss says, Dylan Anderson gives me some Kirk Walters vibes. I can't say that. I think Kirk Walters is going to be good. I mean, not Kirk Walters. I think Dylan Anderson is going to be good. Kirk Walters was one of the worst big men that I've ever seen at the U.
Man, you were holding out hope. I mean, Kirk Walters has got to be, about 40 now? You're still holding out hope that he's going to be good.
Will you guys stand strong against, and Travis, we love you, but will you guys stand strong against that comparison?
In unity? Will I resist the Travis Strauss interpretation of the direction that Dylan Anderson might be going? In the early stages, I most certainly will. And hopefully Travis, and I think Travis would agree with this as well, hopefully Travis is proven wrong about that, and that Dylan Anderson, in the time that he spends in this program, continues to improve and helps Arizona out. Again, it's very early, and one of the things that I think potentially benefits him is that day in and day out in practice, he plays against better competition. And that can be very helpful. And hopefully he's one of those guys who improves as the season moves along and his career moves along here as well.
I mean,
William?
Walters had one good year. Oddly enough, it was his junior year. He was 6.5 and 3.5. I mean, come on. He helped them beat UAB in the NCAA
Isn't he like a professional hiker now or something?
Oh, I have no idea what he's doing.
I think he's like a professional hiker or something. I always see it. Yeah.
I have no idea. All I know is
Brad Alice either cheated and hopes we're not going to check.
No, I have Basketball Reference open right now, as I do on many of these conversations with Mike, because invariably Mike is either going to ask me in July, "Hey, who was better?" or he's
Kirk Walters or Kirill or some garbage question like that.
You know what? I think even though I think Kirill put up better numbers, I take Walters over Kirill. No,
I take Walters all day over Kirill. All right, now let's.
I mean, Walters is yes, he's not a top 30 big man in school history, but he had his moments. And that being said, I think Dylan Anderson is better than him.
But he might be one of the program's best hikers. Who knows?
He might be. You don't see Steve Kerr out taking a hike. I mean, maybe he does. Lute used to hike a little bit though with Steve Rivera.
All right, that's very true. Okay, now let's get to what we're looking for in Maui, everybody. I'm very interested to see what Courtney Ramey can do right there. And by the way, Nick Howard, my parents were at this game as well. And maybe they knew that my parents were showing up, so they felt that the gym needed to be open to them. I don't know. But it was, for the first half, it was fairly quiet and fairly dead. But you also got to remember, it's still a school night, and this is Utah Tech we're playing. So I'll give the fans a pass right there. But what are we looking for now in Maui? Obviously, Courtney Ramey is back. John Schuster, you said something early on that I thought was a great point, and I've stolen nonstop, where you said that he's got a little bit of that Cincinnati, Houston guard vibe to him. What are you looking for from him as Arizona really steps up its competition now?
Well, why don't you tell me what I'm looking for? You remember me saying that.
And I've been stealing it from you, but why steal it from you when I can talk to you right here?
That's also a good deflective point on your part right there. Yes, one of the things that I'm curious about, and we talk about this in some shows, and we tend to wonder when it comes to Arizona, who is it who's going to take the big shot and make the big basket? And you get into those debates about, is it Tubelis, is it Ballo, is it Larson, et cetera, is it Kriisa, et cetera, et cetera. I'm curious about a couple other things in regards to this team. I want to know who's going to make the big defensive stop and who's going to be the SOB who gets the big rebound at the right time that quells a possession as opposed to giving another team a second shot opportunity. Those are areas of gumption and toughness as well. And they kind of get overlooked in the midst of the highlight world that we live in. But there are going to be games, and possibly games that we see next week, where Arizona's going to need somebody or a few somebodies on the roster who can step up and be tougher than we've seen and been concerned about against inferior competition.
Right.
And it's possible that Ramey is one of those guys. And, we get an opportunity over the course of, with the games that are coming up, which are a lot more competitive against much better athleticism than Arizona has seen up to this point. We get a chance to see if there are kids on this roster who have that kind of ability, because that's something that Arizona's going to need. It's great to have 4 guys you can stroll out and be 7 feet tall. That's going to be a problem for a lot of teams. But folks have rightly noticed, even if you're going to bench players or not, that when an inferior opposition is getting 15 offensive rebounds, you're concerned when you're playing better teams. And rebounding, while it's a lot of fundamentals and blocking out, also has a heck of a lot to do with desire and just be a willingness to do whatever you can to claim the basketball against somebody else. And that's one of those, that's going to be, I think, one of the general concerns and relative knocks about Arizona. And the short version of that is next week. And as we move ahead, we'll see if Arizona's tough enough to change that potential reputation.
William, you were mentioned by John Schuster as being possibly not a procrastinator, but somebody that maybe isn't quite punctual. Is this fair? Is this treacherous allegation fair?
Oh, I said it myself. I said I lack punctual.
Well, I know. I wanted to be nice, though.
No. I definitely run on Brad's standard time. A lot of that is I try to do too many things in too short amount of time because I procrastinate.
Well, there's the deal. But that's where Game Time is here to help you. Let's just say that William said, you know what, last second, I'd like to go to the game at Cameron Indoor Stadium when Arizona goes to play Duke. I can't find any tickets. I want to surprise young Tyler. Future interior offensive lineman for the U of A will be taking over for Jonas Sabanea at some point. That's where you would go to Game Time, because Game Time can get you 60% off, and they specialize in getting you tickets at the last second. Check out the link in the description. But, William, that's where you would go, though, if you wanted to do it last second. Period.
That's really good to know.
Okay. All right. Now, look at these teams. John Schuster and I are big fans of Eric Musselman, the Muss Bus, as we call it around here. Now,
you're speaking to the choir. Shu can attest to this. There was a time 15 years ago, maybe a little less than that, I want him to be the Suns coach.
This is me attesting to that.
Yeah.
Is this truth?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Like,
and to tell you how truthful it was, Mike, Brad and I both said in almost unison, "Oh yeah, that's all that's all the guarantee you need." Oh yeah, he said that. Go ahead, Brad.
And
all right.
My fear was he was going to get the ASU job at some point. So,
but the Muss Bus it's rolling right now. 2 straight Elite Eights. That's the team that I want to see Arizona play, because I think if we play, Jake Fisher, U of A football grade in here. That's the one game that I think will really be able to tell us where Arizona is from a press breaking, from a physicality standpoint, from an athleticism standpoint, because there's something about, again, and Dirty Dancer says, this cracks me up because you're speaking for a lot of people. There's something greasy about Musselman that I don't like. That's probably fair. But that to me is going to be the ultimate test right there, is, to where Arizona is athletically, especially at the ball handling position.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of teams, and I haven't memorized the bracket, so I don't know who they can play where, but there's a lot of teams that can give them kind of different looks that I think make this a fascinating tournament. You know over the years what you're going to get out of a San Diego State. What they have to match up with Cincinnati. Creighton's a completely different team than a lot of these teams. So I think there's some very interesting matchups, but I think if you're looking at the team who might be along with Arizona and for having maybe the highest potential ceiling, I think it is Arkansas, because they are very athletic. They've got the NCAA tournament experience of making those 2 deep runs. So I think, if that's a team Arizona faces off with, it becomes a very interesting measuring stick. Now, this is also an Arkansas team who I believe dropped a really bad game the other night. So they may not be a quintessential late recent Arkansas team, but again, from an athleticism standpoint, from a quality of basketball player, they're probably top to bottom, the best, or at least one of the best 2 or 3 in the tournament.
Just my interpretation here, generally speaking, and I suspect this is going to be the norm in college basketball as opposed to the outlier. With so many rosters turning over so much, I tend to be one who takes less credence in what happens in November than I've taken into what's happened in November at any point earlier in college basketball. And I think this is going to be the norm. To me, by the time you get to like February 1st, maybe you start to get a general idea of who you think is going to have enough time to congeal well enough to be an effective team. There's a lot of eye test going on that is a little bit more pertinent than wins and losses.
Right. I agree with that.
So I think you're going to get some wild fluctuations and some immense inconsistency on a lot of levels of college basketball. That doesn't take away at all knowing what kind of style and what kind of general athleticism you have across from you is something that I think is going to benefit Arizona, whether they get the W or not. But I'm not sure that I'd get too excited or too overly concerned unless there's something really glaring that jumps out next week at Maui.
I agree with that. Brad?
Yeah, I mean, if Arizona gets swept, if Arizona looks like they did in the Bahamas a few years ago, then maybe, yeah, it's time because, they got destroyed in those first two games there. But, I also think, though, if Arizona looks great there, it's something you can hang your hat on. I think there's a middle performance. If they get an F or an A, you feel good or bad. But if they get a C+, it doesn't mean a whole lot. And, we've seen Arizona teams go and win Maui and lose in the first weekend in the tournament. We've seen teams that have not performed well at Maui make okay runs.
Right.
So, same thing with the old version of the NIT. So again, to me, it's more of a measuring stick for, how does Arizona look against these different type of, rosters? How do they look against a physical team? How do they look against athletic team like Arkansas, who is a little physical? If you match up with a Creighton, how do they typically Creighton? Again, I haven't seen this version, but typically they shoot really well from the outside. Can Arizona defend the three against a team like Creighton? So that to me is the bigger.
I agree with that.
Is A, how do they look in those three games, and B, how do they look against different type of teams? So if they play really well against Cincinnati, but play really poorly against a more athletic team, then you worry about who you're getting matched up with in that first weekend. If you get a Murray State, who traditionally have a lot of athletes,
right,
maybe you worry. Conversely, if Cincinnati gives them problems, you're praying you don't get a real physical team early on in the NCAA tournament. Again, yes, it could just be a one-game blip, but that's how I want to see. How do the pieces fit against different types of teams? Because although the preseason schedule against these low majors are supposed to give you different types of looks, where the athletes are inferior either from an athleticism standpoint or a basketball skill standpoint or both, the fact that one runs a slowdown and runs up tempo, it doesn't really help you all that much because, again, you could probably beat them with 6 through 12 as opposed to 1 through 5.
He's John Schuster. He's also William Brad Alice. I'm merely Mike Luke. Everybody out there, really appreciate all of you hopping on. You are the ones that make this show. We will be back with you. Let's see here. Juve's up Saturday, so we'll be up here about 4. I am challenging a traffic ticket in court tomorrow for the egregious sin of parking 27 inches from the curb as opposed to 18 inches. So I will let you know. I am appealing this in front of traffic court Judge Seaman. I will let you know what he rules, what he renders.
Hey, I did that 8 or 9 years ago. And although I didn't get the ticket dismissed, I did get the fine cut in half.
Well, that's what I'm looking for. We'll keep you all updated. But again, Shu, Brad, can't thank you enough. All of you on there, you guys are the ones that make this. We'll be back with you on Saturday. You have been listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast.